Hello there, and welcome to the Sleepy Nature channel. Did you know that the little green plants sitting quietly on your windowsill are doing something truly magical right now? They're breathing, growing, and even talking to the air around you, all without making a single sound. Tonight, we're going to spend some time with them, with the soft, peaceful world of houseplants, the kind that live on shelves, on tables, in little pots by the window. And as we listen to their quiet story, something wonderful might just happen. You might start to feel very, very sleepy. So find a comfortable place. Let your shoulders drop. Take one slow, easy breath, and let the plants take care of the rest. There is a plant on your windowsill right now, and it is breathing. Not the way you breathe, not with a rise and fall of the chest, not with any sound at all. But somewhere inside its leaves, tiny openings called stomata are gently parting, pulling in the air around them and releasing something soft and clean back into the room. You cannot hear it, you cannot see it, but it is happening right now as you read this, as your eyes grow a little heavier. Plants breathe in a rhythm that matches the light. In the daytime, when the sun is high and golden, they take in carbon dioxide and breathe out oxygen, the very thing that keeps your own lungs humming. At night, some of them slow down, resting just as you are resting. A few keep working quietly through the darkness, still cleaning, still giving. The pothos on the shelf, the snake plant near the corner, the little succulent by the window. All of them doing something gentle and steady, even when no one is watching. When you walk into a room that has plants in it, your body notices before your mind does. There is a small, almost invisible shift. Something in your shoulders, something in the way your jaw unclenches just slightly. Scientists have studied this. They have sat people down at desks with plants nearby and watched what happens to their blood pressure, to the quiet electrical rhythms of their nervous system. And over again, what they found was the same. The body softens. The heart slows just a little. Something lets go. It isn't magic, though it feels like it. It is something older than magic. It is simply the body remembering where it comes from. We are creatures of the forest, after all. For most of human history, green was everywhere. It was the color of safety, of shelter, of food nearby. The eye was built for it. The brain was shaped by it. And even now, in a room with walls and a ceiling, an artificial light humming softly somewhere, when the eye lands on a green leaf, a real one, with texture and variation, and the faint, imperfect edge that only living things have, something old and deep inside you says, "Here. You are safe here." A plant doesn't ask anything of you. It doesn't need you to perform or explain yourself or be anything other than what you are. It just grows quietly in its pot, doing its small and necessary work. And there is something in that, something restful about a living thing that wants so little. Even the act of looking at a plant changes your breathing. Researchers in Japan have studied what they call forest bathing, the practice of walking slowly through trees, not for exercise, but simply for presence, and found that it lowers cortisol levels, the hormone that rises when we are stressed. But you don't need a forest for this. You need a window. You need a single green leaf catching the morning light. The leaf of a philodendron is heart-shaped, and it has a waxy shine that catches the light differently at different times of day. In the morning, It glows almost gold. At midday, it is a deep, steady green. In the evening, it turns darker, quieter, as if it too is winding down. Watch it long enough, and you start to feel the passage of time as something gentle rather than something chasing you. Touch the leaf with one finger, just the tip, lightly. It is cool and smooth and slightly firm. The surface feels alive because it is alive. There are cells just beneath your fingertip, filled with water, doing their slow and careful work. Studies have shown that this kind of touch, the simple act of handling a plant, of pressing your fingers gently into soil, of running a thumb along a stem, activates something in the nervous system. The body shifts from its alert state into something quieter, something more like rest. There is a name for the collection of microorganisms that live in soil. Billions of them in a single teaspoon, more organisms than there are people on the entire earth. Among them is a bacterium called Mycobacterium vaccae, which has been found to trigger the release of serotonin in the brain. Serotonin is the chemical that steadies mood, that makes the world feel softer and more manageable. It rises when you are happy, when you are safe, when you are held by something warm. And it rises too when your hands are in soil. Your indoor plants carry a little of that world with them. Even in a pot on a shelf, the soil is alive. When you water them, when you repot them, when you press your fingers into the dark earth to feel if it is moist enough, you are touching something ancient, something teeming with quiet life. The fern in the corner unfurls its new fronds so slowly that you never catch it happening. One day, there is a tight green coil like a sleeping thing, and then the next time you look, it has opened just slightly, just a little, and a week later, it is a full leaf waving faintly in the air from the heater vent. Growth you almost miss. Change that is patient and unhurried. There is comfort in that pace, in the way a plant simply does not rush. If you find yourself wanting to share your favorite plant with us, we would love to hear about it. Leave a comment below and tell us what green companion is keeping you company tonight. Breathe in. Let the air settle in your chest. Let the plants breathe with you. There is something in the scent of plant soil after you water it. You have probably noticed it without naming it. That dark, clean smell that rises from a pot when the water soaks down through the earth. It is earthy and slightly sweet, both at once. Scientists have a name for the molecule that makes it: geosmin. It is produced by bacteria in the soil, and the human nose is extraordinarily sensitive to it. We can detect it at incredibly low concentrations, lower than almost any other scent we can perceive. Some researchers believe this sensitivity evolved because the smell of moist earth meant water was nearby, that it was a signal of safety, of sustenance, of a good place to stop and rest. Your houseplants carry that scent, and each time you water them, they release a small cloud of it into the air. Invisible, barely there, but reaching your brain before you have thought a single conscious thought about it. The ivy climbing its little trellis on the shelf. It has been there so long that the stems have thickened at the base, becoming almost woody, almost permanent looking. It does not seem like something that needs caring for. It seems, on certain evenings, like it has simply always been there. And perhaps that is part of what plants do for a room. They make it feel lived in, not just occupied. They make it feel like somewhere time has passed gently. Watering a plant is one of the most unhurried things a person can do. You pick up the watering can, you tilt it slowly. You watch the water darken the soil and disappear. The plant does not thank you. It does not respond in any visible way, not immediately. But something is happening that you cannot see. The roots, pressing down through the dark, are drawing the water upward in a slow and continuous pull. By morning, a leaf that was slightly drooping will have straightened. A stem that seemed tired will be reaching again toward the window. Plants respond to care over time, not instantly. And maybe that is worth sitting with for a moment. The idea that some good things take a little time to show themselves. A peace lily will tell you when it needs water by letting its leaves sag very slightly, like a gentle reminder rather than a demand. And when you water it, it recovers within hours, lifting its leaves back up with what feels absurdly like relief. You know, rationally, that it is not feeling relief. But something about the way it responds to water makes it feel like a small being with preferences, with needs, with its own kind of satisfaction. And there is research to suggest that caring for something, even a plant, even a very small one, does something real and measurable to a person's well-being. It gives the hand something purposeful to do. It connects the mind to a rhythm outside itself. Studies of elderly people in care facilities have found that those given plants to tend score higher on measures of happiness and lower on measures of loneliness. Not because the plants are friends exactly, but because they give a reason to pay attention, to be present, to show up each morning with a watering can. The aloe vera on the kitchen windowsill stores water in its thick leaves, a system evolved for dry places, for waiting out long stretches without rain. Its leaves are plump and cool to the touch, and when you brush against one by accident, there is a faint give, like pressing on something full. It has been on that windowsill for 3 years and has needed almost nothing, just occasional water, occasional light. And in that time, it has quietly grown 5 new offshoots around its base, a small community in a single pot. Some plants communicate through their roots, not in a language we can hear, but through chemical signals passed through the soil. Warnings, resources, small conversations happening in the dark below what we can see. Even in a pot, even alone, a plant is doing something that resembles communication, releasing compounds into the air, adjusting the humidity around it, altering the microscopic community of organisms that live on its surface and in its soil. Your houseplants are changing the air you breathe right now, subtly, quietly, but genuinely, adding tiny amounts of moisture, releasing trace compounds, shifting the invisible chemistry of the room in ways that your lungs register before your mind does. A spider plant, one of the most common of all houseplants, releases a compound into the air that is mildly sedative, barely detectable. Not a dose that would do anything dramatic, but enough to be part of the quiet chemistry of a calm room. It has been growing in kitchens and bedrooms and offices for so long that it has become almost invisible, unremarkable background. But it is doing something quietly, all the time. Let your hands rest, warm and still, wherever they have fallen. Feel the quiet around you. Outside, the world is doing what the world does, cycling through its own slow changes. And in here, the plants are breathing. If you haven't already, come check out our playlist. We have more nights like this one waiting for you there, full of quiet things and slow-moving wonders. There is a kind of light that plants love above all others, not the harsh, flat light of a cloudy afternoon, not the too bright glare of midday, but the long, angled golden light of early morning and late afternoon, the kind of light that comes in low through a window and turns the leaves translucent at their edges, so you can see the veins running through them like rivers seen from above. When you hold a leaf up to that light, really hold it with the sun behind it, you can see the whole network of it. Every vein carrying water and sugar from one end to the other. An architecture so precise and so efficient that engineers have studied it for inspiration. The veins branch and thin and branch again, all the way down to the smallest structures, until every cell is no more than a few widths away from a vessel that can feed it. Nothing wasted, nothing too far from what it needs. Your body works the same way, your own circulatory system branching and thinning until every cell in your body is fed. You and the leaf have more in common than you might expect. The monstera is beloved for its leaves, those large, dramatic shapes with their characteristic holes and slits, which give it the nickname Swiss cheese plant. The holes, botanists believe, evolved to let wind pass through without tearing the leaf, and also to allow light to filter down to the leaves growing lower on the plant. A solution to a problem, arrived at over millions of years. Every hole is a small piece of ancient wisdom. When you bring a new plant home and set it in a spot, it begins very slowly to orient itself. It turns its leaves, not all at once, nothing as dramatic as that, but gradually, over days, toward the best source of light. Come back a week later, and you may notice that a leaf has shifted slightly, that the whole plant leans just a degree or two toward the window. It is finding its way toward what it needs. There is something in that image that is easy to carry with you into the night. The plant, leaning slowly toward light, doing what it can with what it has from where it stands. NASA has studied which houseplants are best at cleaning air in research originally intended for long space missions where air quality in a sealed environment was a matter of survival. What they found is that many common houseplants, golden pothos, snake plants, peace lilies, chrysanthemums, can absorb certain volatile organic compounds from the air around them, taking molecules released by furniture and paint and cleaning products and breaking them down in their leaves. The amounts are small. You would need a great many plants in a sealed room for the effect to be dramatic, but in an ordinary room with ordinary ventilation, plants are part of the system, quiet members of the air-keeping team. The snake plant, Sansevieria, now reclassified but still called by its old name by most people who love it, is particularly unusual in that it continues photosynthesizing at night when most plants have shut down their light-driven processes. It keeps releasing oxygen through the dark hours, a night shift worker in its own quiet way. Many people keep one in their bedroom for exactly this reason, not for dramatic effect, but for the companionship of something alive and working while they sleep. Hoya plants produce waxy, star-shaped flowers in clusters, and when they bloom, which they do rarely and briefly, like a small reward for patience, the flowers glisten as though made of porcelain. The scent is sweet and warm, most strong in the evening, as if the plant is saying something when the day is done. There is a practice in Japan called kokedama, the art of wrapping a plant's roots in a ball of moss and soil, then displaying it hanging or resting on a surface. It removes the pot entirely. The plant sits there with its roots bundled in green softness, suspended or balanced, looking as though it has grown out of nothing. There is something in that image that is both unusual and deeply peaceful. A root system held gently, supported from all sides, needing nothing but to be here. Your own breathing has probably deepened a little by now, without any effort on your part. The body finds its own rhythm when you stop asking it to hurry. A seed is one of the most improbable things in nature. It is small, sometimes smaller than a grain of sand, sometimes no bigger than a speck of dust. Inside it, folded into something impossibly compact, is the entire blueprint for a living thing: root and stem and leaf, the capacity for years of growth, the potential for thousands of seeds in its own time, all of it waiting still in a hard and patient shell. A seed can wait. That is perhaps the most remarkable thing about it. Some seeds remain viable for years, for decades, for, in extraordinary cases, hundreds of years. Seeds found in ancient archaeological sites have been coaxed to germinate. Something sleeping that long, that still, and then, with water, with warmth, waking. When you press a seed into the soil of a small pot, you are participating in something that has no ceremony to it, no drama. You push it in with a fingertip, you cover it over, you water it, and then you wait. Days pass, maybe a week, and then one morning, not the morning you expected it, because you stopped expecting it, there is something. A thread of green, barely visible, curling up from the soil. Not even a leaf yet, just a beginning. Everything that your houseplants are now started that way. That particular philodendron with its dozen wide leaves, once a seed smaller than your thumbnail. The rubber plant in the hallway, once a speck pressed into dark earth by someone's finger somewhere at some point, in a beginning so small it was almost nothing. The roots of your indoor plants are doing their work in a world you never see. Beneath the soil, pressing slowly outward and downward, they are exploring. Root tips are sensitive to moisture, to gravity, to the presence of nutrients. They bend toward what they need, very slowly over time, making decisions without a brain, navigating without eyes. This is called tropism, and it is one of the oldest forms of directed movement on Earth. When a plant's roots reach the edge of its pot and have nowhere left to go, it becomes what gardeners call root-bound, the roots circling and looping, filling all the space available. And yet, often a root-bound plant will bloom, will put out its most impressive growth, as if the constraint itself draws something out of it. The rubber plant's leaves are large and leathery, dark green above and lighter beneath, with a mid-rib that stands slightly raised like a spine. When a new leaf emerges, it is wrapped in a reddish sheath, a protective covering that peels back as the leaf unfurls. The new leaf is always a lighter green at first, almost yellow-green, soft and slightly shiny, and over the course of a week it darkens to the deep color of the older ones. You can watch a plant grow if you are patient enough and pay close enough attention. Cacti are plants that chose a different strategy. They chose to slow almost everything down, to make themselves compact and tough and independent of frequent water. The cells of a cactus are built to hold water for months, for years in some species. When you look at a cactus and see something still and silent and a little forbidding, you're looking at a plant that has made peace with waiting, that has turned patience into a form of mastery. Many succulents, too, are built for slow and patient living. Their thick, water-filled leaves are a store of resources, a reserve for dry times. They evolved in places where the rain comes rarely and the sun is fierce. And yet, here they are, on your windowsill in your apartment, thriving on neglect, asking almost nothing. There is something generous in that. The Crassula ovata, the jade plant, can live for decades. Some jade plants have been passed down through families, outliving the people who planted them. A jade plant that belonged to your grandmother, sitting now in the same ceramic pot, still growing, still pushing out its small, thick leaves. A living thing that has been in the same room as 4 decades of ordinary human life. If this kind of slow and quiet company speaks to you, come find us in our playlist. There are more slow stories waiting there, more nights exactly like this one. Let your body settle a little heavier. Let the weight of you find the surface beneath you. That is right. Air moves through a room with plants in it differently. Not in a way you would feel as a breeze, not in any way a thermometer would catch him, but the humidity is slightly higher, the air slightly more complex, carrying trace molecules released by leaves and soil and the slow metabolic processes of living things. It is, in a small way, closer to the air of an outdoor place than the sealed, static air of a room without plants. Your lungs are ancient organs. They evolved over hundreds of millions of years in an atmosphere shaped by forests, by the photosynthesis of countless plants, turning carbon dioxide into the oxygen that all of us, animals, humans, the entire breathing world, depend on. When you breathe air that has even a little of that forest quality, that slight humidity, that trace of plant-made compounds, something in your body recognizes it. The peace lily is a plant that likes being spoken of at night. It has wide, dark green leaves and occasional white flowers that are not flowers in the conventional sense. What we call the flower is actually a modified leaf, a spathe, surrounding a spike of tiny true flowers. The white spathe catches the light and glows softly even in dim conditions. It prefers shade. It thrives in rooms without much direct sun. It is a plant that has chosen the quiet corners, the overlooked spots, and made them beautiful. When a peace lily needs more water, it droops. Not dramatically, just slightly, the tips of its leaves reaching toward the floor instead of outward. You notice it and you water it, and within a few hours, the leaves have lifted again, resuming their horizontal reach. This response, this visible and reliable communication, is one of the reasons people grow so fond of peace lilies. They seem, more than most plants, to have something like presence, a quality of being there. There is a theory, not yet fully proven, but supported by a growing body of research, that time spent with plants, tending them, watering them, even simply being near them, activates the parasympathetic nervous system, sometimes called the rest and digest system, as opposed to the fight or flight one. The parasympathetic system is the one that slows your heartbeat, deepens your breathing, relaxes your digestion, quiets the constant low hum of alert that modern life tends to keep running in the background. Plants, it seems, have a way of reaching that switch. The heartleaf philodendron has been one of the most popular houseplants for over a century. It is easy to grow, tolerant of low light, and produces a continuous cascade of heart-shaped leaves on trailing vines that can grow many feet long if given the chance. The leaves are a simple, clear green, not variegated, not dramatic, just green. And somehow that simplicity is part of its appeal. It doesn't ask you to notice it. It just grows. If you trail a philodendron vine through your fingers, pulling it gently from base to tip, each leaf passes through your hand in turn. They are slightly cool, each one attached by a petiole, the small stem that connects leaf to vine, that has a faint flexibility to it, a give. The entire vine is alive in your hand, and yet it does not resist or respond. It is simply there. Orchids are more complex. They are among the most diverse plant families on Earth. Tens of thousands of species, growing on every continent except Antarctica, in conditions ranging from humid rainforests to high alpine meadows. The ones we keep indoors are typically Phalaenopsis, the moth orchid, bred for long bloom times and tolerance of home conditions. They produce their flowers on a single arching stem, and the flowers last for weeks, sometimes months, before finally dropping. When an orchid finishes blooming, many people think it is dying. They throw it away. But if you cut the spike back and wait, if you keep watering it on its schedule every 7 to 10 days, enough to wet the roots, and then let them dry completely, it will, in its own time, push up a new spike. The process takes months, and then one day you notice a small green nub emerging from the base of the plant, and over the following weeks it becomes a stem, and then a bud, and then a flower again. Patience, rewarded. That is the rhythm of plants. Long waits, small signs, gradual openings. The spider plant is modest. It does not have dramatic leaves or unusual structure or flowers that stop you in your tracks. It has long, slender leaves in light and dark green, arching outward from the center, and when it has been growing happily for long enough, it sends out long tendrils, runners, that hang downward and produce miniature plants at their tips, dangling in the air, ready to take root if they ever touch soil. These little hanging plants are called spiderets or plantlets, or, affectionately, babies. They swing gently when the air moves. They are perfect, complete little plants in miniature, fully formed, but tiny, waiting. You can snip them off and set them in water and watch the roots emerge. Small white threads unfurling into the water from the base of each plantlet over the course of a week. By the time you pot them, they are ready. This is propagation. One plant becoming many, with almost no effort on your part. A kind of generosity that the plant enacts without any intention of generosity. It simply produces more of itself, and you receive them. Many houseplants propagate easily. The pothos, already mentioned, impossible to kill, a trailing vine of waxy heart-shaped leaves, can be propagated by cutting a section of vine and placing it in water. A node, which is the small bump on the stem where a leaf attaches, will produce roots within days. Within weeks, the cutting is a new plant. There is something quietly satisfying about propagation that goes beyond just having more plants. It is something about the act of watching something grow from the point where you intervened. From the cutting you took, the node you placed in water, the seed you pressed into soil. The plant is yours in a different way. You have participated in the beginning of it. Lavender, when grown indoors, fills a room with its scent. a smell so widely studied for its calming effects that it has become something of a scientific cliché. But the studies are real, and the results are consistent. Lavender's primary aromatic compound, linalool, interacts with the nervous system in ways that reduce anxiety and promote sleep. Even small amounts, even just from a plant on a windowsill, contribute to the character of the air. Jasmine, too, not always easily grown indoors, but possible in a sunny room, produces a scent in the evening that is almost too much, almost overwhelmingly sweet, and yet somehow deeply settling. Research on jasmine fragrance has found it to be associated with reduced anxiety and more restful sleep. There are people who have kept jasmine on a bedroom windowsill for years simply because the evenings with it are better than the evenings without it. The rosemary plant on the kitchen windowsill, grown for cooking, kept for its utility, is doing something additional all the time. As you brush against it, as you harvest a sprig, it releases its oils into the air, woody, resinous, faintly medicinal. Studies suggest that inhaled rosemary compounds may support memory and alertness. But at night, when its scent is just a background note in a quiet room, it settles into something warmer, something that smells like good food and winter evenings and things well made. The smell of basil, too, that sweet green pepperiness of crushed basil leaves, is one of the most immediately comforting scents for many people. Not because of any specific compound, but because smell is the sense most directly connected to memory. And basil for many people means summer, means home, means a table with food on it and people gathered around it. Your nose is older than your language. What it recognizes, it knows in a way that bypasses words entirely. And the plants know this without knowing anything. They simply produce what they produce, and you receive it. Leave a comment if you have a plant that makes your home feel more like home. We read every one. There are plants that have been growing in the same family for generations. A Christmas cactus, passed from a grandmother to a daughter to a granddaughter, now growing in a window in a city, different from any city the grandmother ever saw. Still blooming every December in the same fuchsia pink, still doing what it has always done. A link across decades, a living thread. Plants can do this because they are patient and durable and not particularly demanding. A cactus or succulent, a spider plant, an aspidistra, the cast iron plant, so called because it survives almost anything. These are plants that will outlast apartments, outlast arrangements, outlast seasons of neglect and periods of attention. They do not hold grudges. They do not remember the month you forgot to water them. They simply resume when conditions improve. The aspidistra was immensely popular in Victorian England, grown in dim parlors and dark hallways where almost nothing else would survive. It has wide, deep green leaves that grow on individual stems from the soil, and it is genuinely difficult to kill. It grows slowly. 1 or 2 new leaves a year is considered healthy growth, but it grows steadily, and over many years it becomes a substantial plant, filling a corner of a room with quiet green presence. Some plants grow so slowly that their growth is invisible to you day to day. The zizid plant, Zamioculcas zamiifolia, grows perhaps a few inches a year in ordinary indoor conditions. Its leaves are dark and shiny, its stems thick and upright, and it stores water in its underground rhizomes so effectively that it can survive months without being watered. When you see a large ZZ plant, you are seeing years of patient accumulation. There is a bamboo palm whose fronds move in the air, conditioning current of a room as if in a faint, perpetual breeze. It brings something into a room, some quality of outdoor space, of air that is not still. Not a breeze you feel on your skin, just a visual suggestion of movement, of something alive and unhurried, swaying in a way that carries no urgency at all. Ferns are ancient. They were growing on Earth hundreds of millions of years before the first flower evolved, before the first dinosaur walked. They reproduce by spores rather than seeds, releasing clouds of dust-like particles that drift on the air and settle and, in the right conditions, slowly, very, very slowly, become new ferns. The fern on your shelf is participating, in a small way, in a lineage so old it has no real beginning you could point to. The Boston fern, a common houseplant, is a humidity lover. It prefers the kind of moist air that steam from a shower creates, the kind of air near a humidifier. In the right conditions, its fronds are lush and deep green, arching outward and downward, creating a kind of soft canopy. In dry conditions, it sulks, going brown at the edges, dropping small leaflets that settle on the shelf in drifts. It is, perhaps, the most honest of plants. It tells you exactly how it is doing. The money tree, Pachira aquatica, is often sold with its trunks braided together, 2 or 3 young plants grown side by side and twisted as they grew. The braid holds as the trunks thicken, becoming permanent, a record of their intertwined early growth. The palmate leaves, 5 or 7 leaflets per stem, spread out like an open hand, are a bright, clean green. It is a plant associated in many cultures with luck and abundance. Whether or not it brings either of those things, it brings green and texture and life, and that is enough. In the science of biophilic design, the design of spaces that incorporate natural elements to support human well-being, plants are one of the most powerful and accessible tools available. Studies of offices with plants have found reduced sick days, higher reported well-being, greater focus, and lower stress compared to offices without them. The effect is real, and it is not small. The body responds to green living things, and it responds across cultures, across ages, with a remarkable consistency. You are, right now, in the presence of something that is helping you, quietly, without announcement, without asking for recognition. Let that be a comfortable thought. Let it settle. Rain on a windowsill near a plant is one of the best sounds for sleeping. The drops come in a rhythm that is random but not alarming. There is no pattern to predict, no beat to follow. Just the continuous soft percussion of water meeting glass and the world outside going gray and soft and safe-looking. The plant on the sill is indifferent to the glass between it and the rain. It can feel the change in light, the slight drop in temperature. Its leaves, if they could, would lean toward the window. Many houseplants come from places where rain is abundant, tropical regions, where the air is always warm and wet, where the forest canopy drips long after the rain has stopped, where the soil never fully dries. The pothos, the philodendron, the peace lily, all of them natives of green and rainy places, all of them brought into the dry, temperature-controlled interiors of human homes and asked to adapt. And they have adapted with a flexibility that seems almost generous. Water moves through a plant in one direction, up. It enters through the roots, pulled from the soil by osmosis. The passive movement of water from where it is more concentrated to where it is less. It rises through the stem in thin tubes called xylem, drawn upward by a force called transpiration pull, the gentle suction created at the top of the plant as water evaporates from the leaf surface, pulling the water below it upward to replace what has been lost. The whole system runs on physics, on gravity resisted by living tissue, on the slow miracle of water climbing a plant 10 or 20 times taller than a watering can. The leaf of a tropical plant often has a drip tip, a pointed end that channels water off the leaf and down, preventing the buildup of moisture that might host fungus or bacteria in a warm, wet environment. It is a shape evolved for rain. When you see that point at the end of a leaf, you are seeing a memory of the forest. When you water a plant and watch the water soak into the soil and disappear, you are watching the beginning of that long upward journey. Within hours, the water you poured will be in the stems, in the leaves, eventually evaporating from the leaf surface back into the air of your room. Water that becomes air. Air that becomes imperceptibly more comfortable. Misting a plant is a different kind of watering, a spray bottle close to the leaves, releasing a fine cloud of droplets that settle on the leaf surface and the surrounding air. The plant doesn't absorb this water through its leaves in any significant quantity, but the gesture has something in it, the fine mist hanging in the air for a moment, catching the light, gone before you can follow a single drop. It is a momentary, small weather event in your room. Epiphytes are plants that grow, not in soil, but on other plants, on the branches of trees, on the surfaces of rocks, drawing their water from rain and mist and the air itself. Many of the most popular indoor plants are epiphytic in their natural habitat. Orchids, bromeliads, certain ferns. When you grow them in pots of bark or moss rather than soil, you are approximating the conditions of a tree branch in a humid forest, and they respond by growing more vigorously, more as they would naturally. A bromeliad in a pot has a central cup, a reservoir formed by the tight overlap of its leaves, that in nature catches rainwater and fallen debris, hosting tiny ecosystems of insects and microorganisms in its pool. In your home, you can fill this cup with water, and the plant will be content. There is something about that design, the plant making its own small pond, that is endlessly appealing. Tillandsia are the air plants, no roots, no soil, just leaves that absorb moisture directly from the air. They grow on almost anything: wood, stone, wire, glass. Some people display them in glass globes, in driftwood, hanging from strings. They need only occasional misting, occasional feeding. They seem to require almost nothing, and yet they grow, slowly, steadily, because the air itself is enough. The air itself is enough. That is a thought worth carrying into sleep. If any of this has sparked a curiosity about plants you'd like to know more about, drop a comment. We're always here, and we love hearing from you. A tree that begins as a houseplant is doing something secretly ambitious. The fiddle leaf fig, a plant that has been enormously fashionable in interior design for reasons having to do with its large, deeply veined, violin-shaped leaves and its architectural uprightness, is, in its natural habitat, a banyan-like tree that can grow to 30 meters tall. The one in the corner of the living room, carefully pruned and contained in a ceramic pot, has the genetics of something enormous. It doesn't know it is small. It grows upward, patiently, one leaf at a time, toward whatever ceiling is above it. There is something both humbling and quietly funny about that. This grand ambition in a ceramic pot by the television. This forest giant, trimmed and decorated. The fiddle leaf fig's new leaves emerge wrapped in a waxy sheath like a rolled scroll. As they unfurl, they are a lighter green, slightly translucent, faintly shiny. The veins on these young leaves are a paler green against the leaf's surface, visible from across the room. Over days, the leaf darkens and stiffens into the mature form, large, leathery, confident. The whole process, watched from beginning to end, is one of the small pleasures available to anyone willing to pay attention to a corner of their living room. The microbiome of your home, the community of microorganisms that lives on every surface and in the air around you, is influenced by the plants you keep. This is not a dramatic effect, not a transformation, but a subtle diversification. Plants bring with them the microorganisms of their soil, of their leaf surfaces, of the processes happening inside and around them. Some of these microorganisms, research suggests, may be beneficial to human health. The same bacteria found in outdoor soil, in garden earth, that have been associated with serotonin production and immune function. Your indoor plants are, very quietly, nudging your home's invisible world toward something a little more like outside, a little more like the environments humans evolved in, a little more like the living world we are built for. The Dieffenbachia, dumb cane, is a striking plant with large leaves marked in patterns of cream and green, different on every individual, like a painting that is never quite the same. It has been a popular houseplant for centuries, appearing in Victorian greenhouses and modern apartments alike. Its sap is irritating, the origin of its common name, from the effect of biting into a stem, and so you handle it gently, with respect. Most beautiful things ask for a little care. The prayer plant, Maranta leuconura, folds its leaves upward at night, like hands pressed together in the gesture that gives it its name. In the morning, as the light increases, the leaves lower again, opening to the day. If you are awake in the quiet time just before dawn, you can watch this happen. A slow unfolding, 10 minutes to accomplish what takes a human's eye a blink. The plant is registering the passage of light and doing something in response. Not thinking, not feeling, not deciding, but responding, adjusting, participating in the rhythm of the day. There is a term, nyctinisty, that describes this movement in plants, the folding and opening in response to darkness and light. It is found in many plants: the prayer plant, the oxalis, the wood sorrel, clover, many legumes. The wood sorrel that grows in gardens closes its leaves at night and reopens them in the morning. It has been doing this for as long as wood sorrel has existed, long before any human noticed and gave it a name. The name came later. The movement was always there. What was always there before the name, that is often where the truth of a thing lives. Plants know in their own way about temperature, not through any organ analogous to your skin, not through nerves or sensation as you understand it, but through chemistry, the rate of reaction speeding up in warmth and slowing in cold, the behavior of proteins and membranes changing as the temperature around them changes. A plant in a warm room grows faster than one in a cool room. A plant moved to a cold windowsill at night will slow its metabolism, become slightly more still, more conserving. Some plants use temperature to trigger flowering. Orchids, exposed to a period of cooler nights, will produce flower spikes in response to the change. They are reading the season through chemistry, interpreting the cooling air as a signal that the right time has come. You can induce this yourself in an apartment, moving a phalaenopsis to a cooler room for a month, then back to warmth, and witness the plant responding to your orchestration of its seasons. A small god of temperature, the Calathea, now often called Gopertia in taxonomic reclassification, though most people still know it as Calathea, is a plant of extraordinary leaf patterning. Its leaves come in combinations of dark and light green, purple, cream, and rose in patterns that look hand-painted, feathered, pinstriped, marbled. Each species has its own design. The ornata has thin pink lines on dark leaves. The medallion has large oval leaves with a feathered pattern in contrasting green and silver. The zebrina has stripes. These patterns serve a purpose in the wild, camouflage perhaps, or a way of managing light absorption, making efficient use of the dappled light of a forest floor. In your living room, they are simply beautiful, and beauty is its own kind of purpose. Calatheas, like prayer plants, move their leaves through the day and fold them at night. In a quiet room, you can sometimes hear the faint rustle of this movement. Not exactly a sound, more a suggestion of one, sensed rather than clearly heard. The plant is doing something. The plant is responsive. The plant is, in its way, alive in a way that is easy to feel. The Chinese money plant, Pilea peperomioides, has leaves that are perfectly round and smooth, a deep and even green, like coins made of something softer. It produces offshoots, called pups, around its base, small round-leafed plants that can be separated and potted and given to friends. This habit of easy propagation is part of why it spread through the plant-loving world so quickly, passing from gardener to gardener, greenhouse to windowsill, friend to friend. When someone gives you a plant, they give you something alive, something that will still be alive tomorrow, and the day after that, and perhaps years from now if you attend to it. It is a gift of a different kind than most gifts. Not an object that can be used up or broken, but a presence that persists, that changes, that grows, that is there. There is an intimacy in keeping plants, not a demanding intimacy, not the kind that requires your constant attention or worry, but the kind that comes from any long-term presence. You learn a plant over time. You learn when it needs water, not from a schedule, but from the way its leaves look, the way the soil feels when you press your finger into it. You learn how it likes its light, which window suits it best, whether it wants to be misted or left to its own devices. This learning is quiet and accumulative. You don't notice you are learning until one day you find yourself picking up the watering can without thinking, moving through the plants in the right order, knowing each one. Our playlist has more nights like this one, more long, slow stories of the natural world. It's there whenever you need it. The soil in a small pot of basil is a universe. In a single teaspoon of healthy soil, there are more microorganisms than there are people on the entire earth. Bacteria, fungi, protozoa, nematodes, all living in an invisible web of relationships, eating and being eaten, forming alliances and producing compounds and cycling nutrients through the soil in ways that make the basil's roots possible, that allow the basil to absorb what it needs. Fungi thread themselves through the soil in structures called mycelium, long, thin filaments that branch and network through the earth, connecting and exchanging with plant roots in a relationship called mycorrhiza. The fungi help the plant absorb water and minerals from the soil. The plant shares sugars made through photosynthesis with the fungi. It is a trade so old that the fossil record shows it happening hundreds of millions of years ago, before most of the plants you know existed. Your indoor plants carry this relationship with them, or something like it. Even in a pot, even far from any forest, the soil is alive with fungi that are doing what fungi do, threading through the dark, connecting things, passing things along. There is a quality of patience in fungal growth that is difficult to describe. Mycelium grows at a rate you cannot observe, spreading through the soil day by day, centimeter by centimeter, never stopping, never hurrying. It is the growth of something that has no deadline, no urgency, no particular place it needs to be by any particular time. The smell of a terrarium, a small enclosed glass garden, is particular and unmistakable. It smells of the inside of a greenhouse, of warm, wet earth and green things, and the faint spice of plants releasing compounds into the closed air. A terrarium holds its own small atmosphere, cycling water from soil to leaves to the glass walls and back again. It is a closed loop, a tiny world with its own weather. Building a terrarium is one of the most meditative of plant activities. You lay down drainage material first, gravel or pebbles, and then a layer of activated charcoal to keep the water clean, and then the soil. You arrange the plants with long tweezers, pressing each one gently into its place, making a landscape at a scale small enough to hold in your hands. The moss goes last, filling the spaces between the plants, covering the soil in soft green. Moss is extraordinary. It has no roots. It attaches to surfaces with structures called rhizoids, not roots, which anchor it, but don't absorb water the way roots do. It absorbs water and nutrients over its entire surface like a living sponge. When dried out completely, moss can revive within hours of being moistened, a dead-looking brown carpet becoming green within a day. This tolerance for desiccation, the ability to pause and resume, seems almost impossible. But moss has been doing it for over 400 million years. The smell of wet moss is one of the cleanest smells there is. Not the complex earthiness of soil, but something crisper, like cool water and green, like the air at the edge of a forest just after rain. You can bring something of that air into a room with the right plants, in the right pot, in the right corner. It won't be a forest, but your body will sense the kinship. Plants respond to sound, not in a way anyone fully understands yet. Not through ears, obviously, not through any dedicated organ for hearing, but through the vibrations that sound creates. At the right frequencies, plant growth changes, stems lean, root growth accelerates, flowering happens earlier. The mechanism is not yet clear, but the effect has been observed. There is research still evolving, still being tested and debated, suggesting that certain frequencies of sound in the range of music, in the range of the human voice, can affect plant growth positively. Whether this is about vibration or some more specific acoustic property is still being worked out. But the idea that a plant in a room where people speak gently and music plays softly might grow better than one in silence. That idea is both scientifically interesting and quietly lovely. you may have spoken to your plants. Most plant keepers have, at one point or another, a greeting when you enter the room, a comment when you notice new growth, a murmured apology when you've forgotten to water. There is no evidence the plant hears you in any meaningful way, but there is something in the act of speaking to a plant that changes you. It makes you pay attention. It orients your care. The spider plant on the highest shelf, the one that's been there longest and sends its long runners cascading down toward the floor. You know it has been there long enough that the shelf seems to belong to it more than to the shelf itself. When you water it, you carry the can up on a step, tilting carefully, and the water runs through the pot and drips from the drainage hole into the catch plate below. The whole operation takes 30 seconds, but it is 30 seconds of full presence. There is research from Japan, the same body of work that gave us the concept of forest bathing, that specifically examines what happens physiologically when people interact with houseplants. Water them, touch them, repot them. What they find consistently is that these interactions suppress the activity of the sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight branch, more effectively than equivalent time spent on mental tasks. The body shifts, the heart slows, the breath deepens, the blood pressure drops. Not dramatically, no plant is a medicine, but measurably, consistently, across participants. You have been demonstrating this quietly all evening. The oxalis, sometimes called wood sorrel, sometimes called shamrock plant, has leaves in sets of 3 that close at night, folding inward like tiny umbrellas. In the morning, the leaves open again to the light. New leaves emerge from the soil on thin, pale stems and unfurl themselves over the course of a day. The plant, in the right conditions, will spread slowly through a pot until the entire surface is covered in a dense, soft carpet of trefoil leaves. In autumn, many oxalis go dormant. The leaves die back completely, and the pot appears empty, finished. If you leave it, if you wait, in spring, new growth will emerge from the underground corm, bulb-like storage structures, and the plant will return as if nothing happened. A resurrection in your living room. So many things we think are ending are actually resting. Let your hands feel heavy. Let your face relax. Let the night hold you the way soil holds a root. Completely, in all directions, quietly. The light in a room changes through the day in ways that plants track, and you mostly don't. At dawn, it comes in low and golden from the east, warm and directional, casting long shadows and illuminating the undersides of leaves. As the morning progresses, it brightens and becomes less golden, more neutral. At midday, if the room faces the right direction, it can be bright enough to make a plant visibly uncomfortable, its leaves turning slightly away or paling at their edges. In the afternoon, it shifts again to gold, returning from the west now. At evening, it turns amber and then rose and then disappears. Plants track this with photoreceptors, pigments in the leaf tissue that absorb different wavelengths of light and trigger different responses. The blue light of dawn signals the start of photosynthesis. The red light of evening signals its end. These signals have been calibrated over millions of years of evolution, synchronized with the spin of the earth and the quality of the sun at different times of day. When you use artificial grow lights, you can extend the day for a plant. Give it more hours of the light it uses for photosynthesis. Plants grown under such lights can grow vigorously even in the depths of winter, even in a room without windows. There is something quietly defiant about a little grow light in a windowless corner, holding a plant to summer all year. But there is also something about natural light that is irreplaceable. The quality of it changes hour by hour, as the quality of nothing artificial can quite mimic. It carries information about the season, about the time, about the world outside, that plants read and respond to in ways we are still discovering. The Oxalis triangularis, the purple shamrock, has leaves of such a deep, saturated purple that they seem almost unreal, like the color of something from a fairy tale. Against them, the pale pink flowers it produces are almost transparent in comparison. It folds at night and opens in the morning, and because its leaves are so dark, the opening and closing is more dramatic than in green plants, visible from across a room, a visible response to light. The nerve plant, Phytonia, has small oval leaves covered in a network of veins in white or red or pink, so dense and intricate that it looks embroidered. It needs humidity, and without it, the leaves will wilt dramatically, hanging completely, apparently dead, within hours of drying out. But water it, mist it, give it moisture, and within the hour, it will have recovered completely. Few plants are as immediately responsive. Few plants will more clearly show you that what looked like disaster was only thirst. The air around a healthy plant is slightly ionized. Photosynthesis and transpiration produce small electrical effects in the air near leaves. Nothing you would ever detect with any sense, but real nonetheless. Some research has associated slightly ionized air with improved mood and alertness, with a quality of freshness that feels different from ordinary indoor air. A room full of plants may be, very gently, very subtly, electrically different from a room without them. The plants outside your window are doing everything too. The ones in a garden or a street tree or a distant hillside, all photosynthesizing, transpiring, releasing pollen and spores and compounds, doing the slow, invisible work that keeps the atmosphere in the condition that life requires. You are downstream of all of that. The air you breathe carries traces of every plant that has contributed to it. You are never really far from a plant. You are never outside the world the plants have made. Some houseplants have been in homes for so long that they've shaped how we think about home. The aspidistra, that cast iron plant of Victorian parlors, appears in the art and literature of an era as a symbol of middle-class domesticity, of rooms that are settled and permanent and filled with quiet life. It was a cliché before it became one, and now it has cycled back around to being simply a plant again, chosen by people who like its wide, dark leaves and its extraordinary toughness. The rubber plant, Ficus elastica, was brought to Europe from tropical Asia in the 19th century and became immediately popular. The large, glossy leaves were like nothing seen before in European homes. They brought a suggestion of the tropics, of warm and abundant places, into the gray interiors of Victorian drawing rooms. The plant has never gone out of fashion since. Every few decades it comes back into style with new variety names, new pot designs, new editorial context. But it is the same plant, still growing, still producing those broad and certain leaves. Bringing a plant home is a small act of cultivation that connects you to an extremely long chain of humans who have done the same thing. Someone, thousands of years ago, moved a plant from the wild into a space near their dwelling, for food, for medicine, for pleasure, for the quality it added to the air around them. Every houseplant in every home today is a continuation of that impulse. The need for green living things in the spaces we inhabit is not a trend. It is something older. The terrarium was popularized in the Victorian era by a doctor named Nathaniel Bagshaw Ward, who discovered accidentally that ferns could thrive in sealed glass cases, creating their own closed water cycle, maintaining their own humidity. The Wardian case, as it became known, transformed botanical science by allowing plants to survive long sea voyages, and it transformed domestic interiors by making it possible to grow delicate plants in the smoky, dusty air of industrial cities. Glass and green, enclosure and life. Even the word greenhouse contains a kind of philosophy that green things, given shelter, will thrive, that the right conditions provided by human hands can allow something vulnerable to persist and grow where it otherwise couldn't. There is a generosity implied in that. The ZZ plant, mentioned earlier, stores reserves in its rhizomes, underground structures like small potatoes, that can sustain the plant through months of drought. When you bring one home and set it in a low-light corner and water it infrequently, and it simply keeps growing steadily, season after season, that persistence is powered by those reserves. The plant is drawing on what it has stored, making do, growing quietly with what's available. This is what you do too. In the difficult times, in the low-light seasons, you draw on what you've stored. You grow quietly with what's available. The sansevieria, snake plant, grows so slowly in ordinary indoor conditions that its roots can sit in the same pot for years, decades sometimes. One plant, observed carefully, will show only a few new leaves per year. But those leaves are perfect when they come. Sharp-edged, upright, with their characteristic yellow margins and their mottled gray-green patterning. Worth the wait. Come and check out the playlist when you are ready for another night like this. Everything there is slow and gentle and waiting for whenever you need it. Tonight, somewhere in your home, a plant is doing its quiet work. Its roots are pressing through the dark of the soil. Its leaves are absorbing the last of the day's light and will rest through the night, slowing their processes to something still and maintenance level. The soil around its roots is alive with organisms you cannot see, doing what they do in the dark in the small world of that pot. And the air around it, the air you are breathing right now, has passed through a leaf. Somewhere in its journey to your lungs, some portion of the air in this room has passed through a stoma, has been part of the photosynthetic cycle of a plant, has been touched by green. There is a quality of presence that living plants bring to a space that is difficult to name, but easy to feel. It is not warmth exactly, though they contribute to a feeling of warmth. It is not silence, though they are silent. It is something about the co-presence of another living thing, something that is alive alongside you, doing its work while you do yours, asking nothing, taking nothing that isn't freely available. The rubber plant in the corner, the trailing pothos on the shelf, the spider plant sending its runners downward in long arcs, the peace lily in the dim corner, its white spot catching whatever light there is, the snake plant standing upright and reliable at the edge of things, the small succulent on the windowsill that has been there so long it seems like part of the sill itself. All of them breathing, all of them, in their way, here. The research on what plants do for the human body is still growing. There are more studies to be done, more mechanisms to be understood, more relationships between the living world and the inner world of the human body to be mapped. But what is already known is this, that tending plants lowers blood pressure, that being near plants shifts the nervous system away from alertness and toward rest, that the microorganisms in soil have chemical relationships with the human brain, that the smell of damp earth activates ancient memories in the oldest parts of the nervous system, that the act of watering something, touching something, caring for something that is alive, does something to a person that mere mental work cannot do. You are a creature of this earth, made from it in a sense. Every mineral in your body was once in soil, in water, in the rock and silt of some old place. You are continuous with the living world, not separate from it. And in a room with plants, in a quiet evening like this one, something in you knows that. Something in you recognizes what it is near. The morning glory grows so fast you can almost watch it happen. In the right conditions, warm soil, good light, something to climb, it can add several inches of new growth in a single day. The vine reaches outward with its tendrils, which are modified stems that have evolved specifically for finding and gripping. A tendril will swing slowly through the air in a motion called circumnutation, a gentle, continuous circling until it touches something. The moment it touches, it begins to coil around whatever it has found, tightening gradually over the course of hours into a secure and flexible grip. This reaching is not random. It is directional, purposeful, responsive. The tendril is doing something that looks, from a certain angle, very much like searching. Inside your home, a climbing plant on a moss pole or a small trellis is doing the same thing. The pothos trails and reaches. The Hoya sends out long arching stems that circle slowly, looking for purchase. If you give them something to climb, they take it, wrapping their stems or tendrils around the support and beginning to move upward toward the light that is always somewhere above. Climbing plants in their natural environments are taking a particular kind of gamble, investing in height rather than in their own structural support, borrowing the support of other plants rather than building trunk and bark. They grow faster for it. They reach the upper canopy sooner. And in your living room, they grow long and lush and trailing, moving through the air of a room with something like ease. A pothos in a hanging basket can produce stems many feet long. The leaves get larger as the vine matures, and in ideal conditions the stems will reach the floor and keep going. Across a shelf, down the side of a bookcase, along the edge of a table. There is something pleasantly unruly about a plant that has grown long enough to need managing, long enough to have opinions about its space. The fiddle leaf fig, by contrast, is vertical and decided. It grows straight up, producing leaves on a single trunk, becoming slowly tree-like in its form. Side branches emerge occasionally, giving it a more architectural quality. If you want a fiddle leaf fig to branch, you can pinch the growing tip, removing the active bud at the top of the stem. And in response, the plant will send energy to lateral buds, producing branches where before there was only trunk. You are, in a very small way, making decisions with the plant. This kind of active relationship with a plant, responding to how it grows, making small adjustments, noticing what it needs, and providing it, is different from simply owning a plant. It is a practice, something that develops over time, that gets easier as you learn the particular habits and preferences of your particular plant. And the research on this kind of engaged plant care, what might be called active tending rather than passive possession, suggests that the benefits to the person are correspondingly greater. More touch, more attention, more time in the presence of the living thing. There are people who describe caring for their plants as a kind of meditation, not the formal, structured kind with cushions and timers, but the older kind, the kind that comes from being completely present in a simple, repetitive task, from having your hands occupied and your mind quiet, from the full attention of watering, checking, pruning, turning. When you rotate a plant, something you do periodically so that all sides receive equal light, preventing the plant from leaning too heavily toward the window, there is a moment where you hold the pot in both hands and turn it a quarter turn and set it back down. In that moment, you have the full weight of it. The soil and the roots and the stems and all the leaves, living and green and continuous in your hands. You set it back carefully. You step back and look at it from the new angle. It looks the same. It looks slightly different. You have given it a better view. The nerve plant, Phytonia, in its small pot of humid soil, is producing a new leaf from somewhere low near the stem. It is still tight, still furled, a small green fist of a thing. By tomorrow or the next day, it will have begun to uncurl. By the end of the week, the embroidered veining of its surface will be visible. It is one of the smallest events in the room and one of the most complete. Outside, the light is shifting. The day is doing what the day does, moving through its long arc without hurry, without the possibility of hurry. The trees outside, if there are trees outside, are doing the same thing the plants inside are doing at greater scale, with more roots, with more history. The same chemistry, the same physics, the same light turned into sugar, turned into growth, turned into the oxygen you are breathing right now. If you have found a new favorite from this story, leave a comment and tell us about it. We would love to know which plant found its way to you tonight. Let your breath move slowly and without effort. Let everything that needs to be done tomorrow wait in the tomorrow where it belongs. A cactus blooms once. In many species, the bloom happens at night. A large, white, complex flower opening in the dark, lasting only hours, gone before morning. The night-blooming cereus, Selenocerius grandiflorus, is called the Queen of the Night, and the name is accurate. The flower can be larger than your hand, white and cream, and faintly gold, with petals and sepals that open in a slow and continuous unfurling through the night hours. It smells intensely sweet, almost overwhelming, a fragrance aimed at the moths and bats that pollinate it in its native desert. If you grow one, and it takes years before it first blooms, the event, when it comes, is brief and extraordinary. People gather to watch. The opening is slow enough to see, but not so slow you have to wait. Over the course of an hour, the bud opens fully, and then, through the rest of the night, it holds its form and scent. And by morning, it has collapsed, the petals fallen, the beauty gone. But it happened. There is a particular quality to things that are brief. the cherry blossoms, which peak for perhaps 2 weeks and then fall, the first tomatoes of August, the morning light at a particular angle through a particular window on a particular day in October. Briefness makes the attention sharper. You look more carefully at things that will not stay. Some houseplants bloom more generously. The kalanchoe, for instance, produces dense clusters of small flowers in red or orange or yellow, and in good conditions will bloom for months. The African violet sits in its pot and produces its soft purple flowers in continuous waves, needing very little encouragement. The Hoya, when it finally blooms, after months or years of patient growth, produces clusters of waxy, star-shaped flowers that glisten as if lacquered and smell sweetly of vanilla in the evenings. Flowers on houseplants can feel like a gift, not an earned gift exactly. The plant was going to bloom when it was ready regardless of what you did, but a gift nonetheless. Something given freely without prior announcement on the plant's own schedule. When you bring flowers into a home, cut flowers in a vase bought from a market or a shop, you are bringing the scent and color of outdoor places inside. The stem in the water is still living, still drawing water up through its vessels, still holding the flower in place for as long as the chemistry of the stem allows. A vase of cut flowers on a table is brief and beautiful and does something to the light in a room, the way color and texture do, the way living things do. There is research on how people respond to receiving flowers. The effect is measurable in the short term, an increase in positive affect, a decrease in anxiety. But it persists across days, in ways that other gifts do not. The flowers are still there the next morning. They are still there 3 days later, changed, but continuing. And when they finally go, when the petals drop and the stems soften, the space they leave is noticed. The table seems slightly less itself without them. The cyclamen is a plant of winter. It blooms from autumn through early spring, in colors from white to the deepest magenta, with petals that arch upward like the wings of something about to lift. It comes from the rocky hillsides of the Mediterranean, places of cool winters and bright springs, and it carries that quality with it. Something cool and clean and bright, suited to the interior light of a winter room. When the cyclamen finishes blooming and its leaves die back, it is not dead. The corm, the swollen underground base, is storing energy, waiting for cooler temperatures to return. Put it in a cool, dim place for summer. Water it barely. Then, in autumn, bring it back to a bright, cool window and begin watering again. The leaves will come first, their silver markings mapping out from the center of each dark green leaf, like water spreading on cloth. The buds will come next, and then the flowers again, as if they never left. Many of the most beautiful things ask for patience. They ask you to hold the space, to not give up on the resting thing, the dormant thing, the thing that looks finished but is only between its seasons. There is a light in the late afternoon that falls through leaves and breaks into pieces. You have seen it. The way sunlight filtered through a canopy moves and shifts as the leaves move, making patterns on the ground that are never quite still, never quite the same from one moment to the next. This quality of light has a name in Japanese, komorebi. It means, roughly, the interplay of sunlight and leaves. There is no single English word for it, which may be why it feels like something discovered when you first encounter the Japanese term. The recognition that something you have seen many times without naming finally has a name. Your indoor plants on a bright afternoon can make something like kohlrabi in a room. Not the forest version, not the dappled acres of it, but a version in miniature on a windowsill. The light through the leaves of a large fiddle-leaf fig or a monstera throws patterned shadows on the wall behind it. The shadows shift as the sun moves. The room is still, but the shadows move. Light through a monstera leaf is particularly beautiful. The holes and splits in the leaf let through separate beams, and as the leaf moves slightly in the air from a nearby vent or an opened window, the beams of light shift and reform. You could watch it without thinking about anything for longer than you'd expect. The monstera's fenestrations, the holes and splits in its leaves, are one of nature's most aesthetically striking adaptations. In its native rainforest habitat, the large lower leaves of a growing monstera are thought to benefit from the holes, which allow wind to pass without tearing the leaf, and may allow light to reach lower leaves. But in your living room, the holes are simply beautiful. They are the reason the monstera became one of the most recognizable plant shapes in the world of design and pattern and print. The shape of something evolved for survival in a humid forest, reproduced on fabric and wallpaper and ceramics. When a thing is beautiful enough, it escapes its original context and becomes itself, becomes an image, a form, a presence in the visual language of the world. The monstera leaf has done that. So has the frond of a fern, the round leaf of the pilea, the architectural uprightness of a cactus. These are forms that have entered human visual culture so deeply that you recognize them before you know you're recognizing them. Design researchers study this phenomenon, the way natural forms appear and reappear in human-made objects across cultures and centuries. Leaf shapes in architectural ornamentation, spiral forms found in shells, appearing in staircases, in furniture legs, in the handles of tools. The brain responds to natural forms with a familiarity that is older than conscious memory. These shapes say, "You have been here before." These shapes say, "Home." The window itself is a kind of frame for the living world. Whatever is visible through it, even a single tree branch against a gray sky, even the edge of a neighbor's garden, even the sky alone, is a piece of the outdoor world brought to the edge of the indoor one. And a plant on the windowsill sits exactly at that threshold. It is inside, in your warm room. It is also, in some sense, at the edge of outside, its leaves reaching toward the sky behind the glass, participating in the same light as the trees in the street. There is something in that position, the threshold, that is worth noticing. The plant is in two worlds at once, or at the border between them. It is domesticated, but not entirely. It is tamed, but not changed. A rubber plant in a pot in a living room is still genetically, botanically, a jungle tree. It remembers what it is, even if we don't. The monstera in the corner, the pothos on the shelf, the fern in the humid bathroom, the cactus on the sunniest sill. Each of them a wild thing, a little. Each of them from somewhere vast and warm and green. Each of them here in this quiet room, doing what they do. And you are here too, in the quiet room, with the plants. If this is the kind of company you like to keep at the end of the day, our playlist is full of it. Slow stories, green places, unhurried evenings. It is always there. let your thoughts settle like leaves after the wind has passed. There is a practice, very old, of keeping a plant journal. Not a scientific record, not measurements and dates and observations written in the careful hand of a botanist. Just notes, just the things you notice. A new leaf on the calathea, the third one this month. The pothos finally reaching the shelf below. The peace lily drooping, and then, after watering, lifting itself back up within the afternoon. Small things written down that would otherwise pass without witness. Keeping a plant journal is a form of attention. It asks you to look carefully enough to see change. And because plant change is slow, this means looking carefully on days when it seems like nothing is happening, and discovering that something is always happening, that nothing in the world of plants is actually quite still. The act of writing things down, even briefly, even imprecisely, changes the experience of noticing. It makes the small things feel kept. It makes the ordinary feel witnessed. And there is something in that, something that extends beyond plants, something that applies to most of living. The lemon tree on a balcony or in a very sunny room is one of the most fragrant of all houseplants. Not just the fruit, the flowers, when they appear, are white and small and smell intensely of what lemon always promises. Summer, brightness, the warm complexity of citrus, and the leaves, when you run your thumb along them and release a little of their oil, smell of the rind of lemons, of the clean green sharpness of something citric. Growing a citrus tree indoors requires commitment, bright light, careful watering, humidity, patience. But the people who do it describe it as one of the most rewarding of plant relationships. The tree is demanding enough to keep you paying attention, and generous enough to reward that attention with fragrance and sometimes with fruit. Small yellow lemons on a tree in a living room in January. The smell of citrus has been studied for its effects on mood and alertness. Several aromatic compounds in citrus peel have been associated with reduced anxiety and increased positive affect. A room with a lemon tree in it, a room where the faint green citrus scent is always present, is a room that is doing something to the chemistry of the people in it. Something good and small and continuous. The aromatic plants, lavender, rosemary, jasmine, lemon, basil, eucalyptus, represent a particular layer of what houseplants can offer. Beyond the visual, beyond the air quality, beyond the companionship of a living thing, they offer scent. And scent is the most direct path from the world to the oldest parts of the brain. Scent bypasses the rational mind and goes straight to memory, to emotion, to the embodied sense of being somewhere, of having been somewhere, of safety and pleasure. A rosemary plant rubbed gently between your fingers, releasing that resinous, medicinal warm scent, can take you to a specific memory before you have had a chance to think about what you are doing. A moment of cooking, a particular afternoon in a garden, a meal with people you love. The plant holds the scent, and the scent holds the memory, and you are, briefly, somewhere else, somewhere good. This is the gift of aromatic plants kept close, not the dramatic or unusual gift, but the consistent, daily one, the small richness of a room that smells of green and living things, the welcome of a scent that you know, that knows you, as you lie here in the quiet of wherever you have settled tonight. The plants around you, wherever they are in your home, whatever kind they are continuing, the roots in the soil, the cells dividing slowly, the stomata deciding based on the darkness whether to open or to hold. All of it happening in the soft dark of an ordinary night, exactly as it has happened in rooms like yours, in homes like yours, for as long as humans and plants have been sharing space, which is a very, very long time. You are the latest in a long, unbroken line of people who brought green things inside and felt better for it. You are, in this simple way, continuous with all of them. Let your eyes close all the way now. Let the breath move without your help. Let the weight of the night be gentle on you, as it always is, as it has always been, as the dark is always gentle when the day has been laid down. The plants are here. Everything is growing slowly in the dark toward what it needs. Sleep well. Thank you for spending tonight with your plants and with us. If this helped you settle into rest, a like means the world. And if you want to tell us about the plant that shares your room tonight, leave a comment below. The full playlist is there whenever a quiet evening calls. Good night.